Hi, this is Tracy from Girls to Grow. Thanks so much for stopping by today. And since we're in May, I imagine most of us, our children are wrapping up school here in the next few weeks to a month. So with the summer stretching ahead of us, I thought I would share with you something that I did with our girls when they were younger, and I called it our summer learning program. And I would say I mostly did this with them probably in the elementary school years. You could certainly do it, say, with a 4 and 5-year-old. Obviously, mom's gonna have to be a little bit more involved at that point. But this was something that we actually looked forward to in the summer. And it was basically a time where we could delve more into topics that maybe in school they hadn't been able to really dig into, and things that they were interested in. Now, it does take a bit of organizing ahead of time for this to work well. So I just thought I'd share 6 ideas on how I set up our program, and then I'll give you some more specific examples about things that we actually did. So first of all, I would just sit down sometime beginning to middle of May and make a list of topics that I thought our girls would be interested in learning more about. Usually they had things, whether it was princesses and castles or horses or airplanes or weather, whatever it was. But I would sit down, make a list of those topics. And then secondly, I would kind of lay out a basic schedule for the summer. I'd look at our calendar. I knew there'd be some weeks where they would have vacation Bible school at church, or we'd be taking a family trip, or maybe swimming lessons. So I wouldn't plan anything for those weeks. But on the weeks that seemed pretty open, I would number those weeks and list those out. And then I would assign a specific topic to each week that we were going to be doing our summer learning program. I typically planned on probably about 3 days a week. I knew there might be days we'd just want to go to the pool, or maybe we'd be meeting friends to play. So I would plan usually about 3 days a week, and that would be our schedule. And so then thirdly, once I had kind of the schedule laid out and our topics for each week, I would start to gather resources. And books were a huge one for me. Now, there were certain topics we might already own books on, but if not, I would see what the local library had, things that we could check out, make sure those were available. And also I might look for age-appropriate documentaries or videos, movies that would pertain to the topic that they would be interested in reading about. Sometimes I'd also go online and just look for free coloring sheets or printable worksheets that we could use that would apply to our particular topic. Then fourthly, I would try each week to add at least one hands-on activity, whether it was cooking or painting or building something that applied to the subject for that week. I would try to have a hands-on activity that would involve them in that way as well. Then fifthly, I would try to plan 1 or 2 field trips per summer. Certainly not one every week, but there would usually be 1 or 2 topics that I knew there was something local that we could go to and participate in, whether it was a museum or some type of other activity. So I tried to do a couple of those this summer and gather the details and the information ahead of time so we'd be prepared for that. And then number 6, I really tried to make it fun. I didn't want this to be school 2.0, but I wanted them to see that they could learn and really find out more about subjects they were interested in, even while we were together at home over the summer. Now, I'm going to give you a range of topics here, some of the different things that we did, and then I'll even go into that a little more specifics with those here in just a minute. But some topics we studied were animals, a specific period in history, flowers, plant life, really anything outside in nature. And that was a good one too for a hands-on activity, even planting flower seeds or some other type of seeds in a pot or in the backyard. That was a good activity to go along with that. American presidents or first ladies. Weather, I know we have hurricanes periodically here in coastal South Carolina, so that was something that was good to study. Countries, you could do a country, you could even do a state or a region. If there was a particular interest, maybe you know you have ancestors from a specific area, that would be interesting to learn about. Space, famous authors, Bible characters, we did that one summer. Music, our girls were always into music, so we could study a different composer or even particular types of instruments, and that would be something that would be interesting for them. One summer, I think this was the summer our girls were 6 and 8. I'll give you a few of the things that we did. One week we did choose to study countries. So we got books on a few different countries that each girl chose. Then we went to the grocery store and tried to get either a food from one of the countries that we were studying, or we'd go in with a recipe that we wanted to make that pertained to one of those countries, and we get the ingredients to make that. I would also often try to tie a Bible verse to the theme that we were learning about. So that particular week we did Acts 1:8, which of course talks about spreading the gospel to all the different parts of the world. We did a week of animals. So each girl chose a few different animals to read about. And actually that was one of our field trip weeks. We have a zoo about 1.5 hours, 2 hours away. So we were able to go there. And that was part of that week. We did famous Americans one week. So each girl chose a biography or an autobiography about a famous American. We've done missionaries. We've studied our bodies. We've done different things on health and exercise. We also did authors one week. I think this was the following summer. And then a neat part of that for a hands-on activity, after they had studied an author, each child made her own little book, and they did some little illustrations and a brief story. So that was exciting. And then we did a trip to a bookstore and just looked at some different books there. Then one week we actually did Washington, D.C. We had a trip coming up in the fall that our family was going on to Washington, D.C. So we read about the history of the city, looked at a lot of the popular sites and monuments, pictures of those. And then we actually had our girls choose 5 must-see attractions, and we added those into our trip that we had coming up in the fall. We studied Europe one week. Horses was one that our girls were into, so we read some books on different horse breeds and training and riding horses. And that was another field trip week. We actually have carriage rides downtown where they tour you around historic Charleston, so we were able to add that into our week. So those are just some ideas, but there are so many ideas, and I think you'll probably just pick up on some things that your boys or girls are naturally interested in. And a few other things we would do during the summer as part of this, especially as the girls got older. A lot of times they would come home at the end of the school year with pages left and say their math workbook or an English workbook. And of course, at the end of the school year, they were not interested in those, but I would save them. And maybe middle of the summer when they were starting to get bored, or towards the time when school was going to start, it was good to just pull one of those out here and there and get them just kind of refresh their memory on some of those things that they had learned in the past school year. Of course, they would take piano, so we would have some piano practice time during the summer. And then as they got older, I would say probably more like middle school to high school years, we actually started paying them to read some nonfiction books. Now, we never had any trouble getting our girls to read fiction books, but we would pay them to read some nonfiction books that we would choose that were age appropriate, but that taught them kind of some life principles that we thought would be helpful for them. So that might be another idea for you. You could have them write a report on the book, which we probably did a few times, but a lot of times when they were done, we would just sit down and talk with them about the book, ask them questions. What did they think about it? What did they learn from it? So I think that was really helpful and a good way to use their summer weeks as they got older. So I hope those ideas will be helpful for you. I'll try to drop some links in below to some of the blog posts I wrote about our summer learning program in case they might be helpful to you as well. Thanks again for stopping by, and have a great day.